A top champion has officially joined All Elite Wrestling, and are the Elite set to add a new member to their ranks? And after today's news, be sure to check out the latest video over on the gaming channel where we detail the most improved superstar ratings in WWE 2K23 compared to their last video game appearance, and it took me a long time to make, so I'd appreciate the support. But first, All Elite Wrestling have officially confirmed the second ever Forbidden Door event. Last June, the first crossover show between New Japan Pro Wrestling and AEW would take place in Chicago, Illinois. However, this time they're set to head north of the border. The company would release an official statement confirming the show as part of a 1-month stretch of Canadian shows and said, AEW CEO, GM, and head of creative Tony Khan today announced that AEW will begin a month-long excursion of Canada starting in June, touring across Ontario, Alberta, and Saskatchewan in red-hot shows including AEW Dynamite, AEW Rampage, AEW House Rules, and the highly anticipated return of the AEW New Japan Pro Wrestling Forbidden Door pay-per-view. After selling out the Coca-Cola Coliseum in minutes for AEW's Toronto debut last October, Scotiabank Centre will play host to the Forbidden Door pay-per-view on Sunday, June 25th, marking the second iteration of this groundbreaking event that pits the best and brightest talent on the AEW and NJPW rosters against one another. The contract status of former AEW World Champion Kenny Omega has been a topic of discussion in recent weeks, with his deal originally set to expire in April 2023. With that said, time was added onto the contract due to him taking time off due to injury, with the deal now expected to expire in around October time. There has been reports that WWE are interested in signing the cleaner, which would be a huge coup were they to pull it off, and speaking with CBS this week, Omega would discuss his future in wrestling. He would say that he's yet to decide what's next for him and would say, I think at this point anything new appeals to me, and challenges also always appeal to me. At one point it was one of those, if you say I can't do it, I really want to do it. Now it's not that. I wouldn't say I'm older and wiser, it's more like I'm older and I care less about that. It's more about what kind of people can I reach, what kind of positive thing can I contribute, and what do I even feel best suited for. I always kind of try to find my own way, or at least try to lean in the direction of where my heart is pulling me. I haven't had that sort of epiphany yet. In recent months, the US Federal Trade Commission has made strides to squash the use of non-compete clauses in employment agreements, something that would have an impact on the top contracts in wrestling. When discussing how this could affect All Elite Wrestling, Fightful Select would detail what they know about contracts in AEW, and it appears that the ruling will make little difference to the company as opposed to WWE, who have 90 or 30-day non-compete clauses in all of their contracts, depending on if they are main roster or developmental talent. The report notes that based on the contracts they've seen and the talents they've spoken to, there aren't any non-compete clauses attached. When discussing the reason for this, it was noted that AEW doesn't typically release talent anyway, and wrote, when asking AEW sources about the nature of this, we were told a few things. For one, All Elite Wrestling doesn't generally release talent anyway, unless there's a special request or disciplinary action, so they haven't necessarily had to implement those. The report adds that any early departures are dealt with on a case-by-case basis, with the potential release of CM Punk being used as an example, who was reported to have been in talks to get out of his deal early following the events of last fall. Noting that non-compete clauses could be added as part of a negotiation to get out of a contract, Fightful would add, upon some early departures, we're told things are largely a case-by-case basis. For example, everyone we spoke to in AEW believed that if CM Punk were let out of his deal early, it would be on the condition he could not compete in WWE for a period of time. And this brings us on to our next story nicely, as the non-compete clause of a recently released WWE superstar has now expired. As of March 14th, Mandy Sachs, the former Mandy Rose, is now officially a free agent following the expiration of her 90-day non-compete clause, with her now being free to sign with another wrestling organization. Whilst it's unclear if this is something that she plans to do in the future, we can confirm that she is now on the open market. Over recent weeks, reports emerged that Great Muta was one of the names being considered for this year's class in the WWE Hall of Fame. While the stories seem to be true, as last night WWE would make the announcement themselves, confirming that one of the biggest names in Japanese wrestling will be honored this year, and WWE would take to their website to write, Muta is a world-renowned and feared wrestler, performing in Japanese promotions All Japan Pro Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Pro Wrestling Noah, but also notably in the US-based World Championship Wrestling. Muta began his career in NJPW, where he made a name for himself before heading to WCW, where he battled with the likes of Sting, Lex Luger, and even Stone Cold Steve Austin, then going by his stunning nickname. Muta joins Rey Mysterio as the second name added to this class, with it being confirmed that he will be inducted by the Nature Boy Ric Flair on WrestleMania weekend. And before we get to the news coming out of AEW Dynamite last night, let's discuss what happened after the show during the tapings for AEW Rampage, where a new signing was revealed. Tony Khan would introduce Sarah Stock to the audience, before PW Insider later reported that she's joined the company as a coach and producer, and the report notes, Sarah Stock has been hired by AEW as a coach/producer at PWInsider.com has learned. Stock officially started tonight in Winnipeg. Stock has previously worked as a producer for WWE. She initially signed to become a WWE Performance Center guest coach in 2015, occasionally making cameos on NXT broadcasts as well, before being shifted to a main roster producer role. She was released by WWE in September 2020 when the COVID-19 pandemic was at its height as part of company cutbacks. Prior to Stock's time in WWE as a coach, she did have an in-ring career of her own, performing as Dark Angel in CMLL and AAA. She also had a run in Impact Wrestling in the early 2010s as Sarita, where she teamed with current WWE star Zelina Vega, then known as Rosita, with the duo later linking up with Hernandez and Anarquia as a faction named Mexican America. The latest episode of AEW Dynamite would take place last night in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, a show that would kick off with AEW World Champion MJF undergoing his re-bar mitzvah. It didn't take long for the champion to be interrupted, however, as he would find himself sharing the ring with fellow pillars of AEW, Jungle Boy Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin, all making a case to be the #1 contender for the world title. After many insults between the four men, most notably with Darby Allin taking a shot at the AEW locker room as a whole, calling out those that complain and want out of their contract for not getting their own way. It would be MJF that would leave with egg on his face, or cake in this case, when he was knocked off the apron through a table. It seems that at least one, if not all of the pillars are in line for a title shot somewhere down the line as MJF's reign of terror continues. Elsewhere on the show, Jade Cargill's AEW TBS Championship Open Challenge would take place, with her calling for Canada's best to step up to the plate. It was independent wrestler Nicole Matthews that accepted the challenge, although she ultimately fell short in just under 1 minute. This then led to Cargill calling for more competition, which led to the debut of AAA Reina del Reyna's champion Taya Valkyrie, who many expected to be the opponent for the match, with the company swerving fans whilst also keeping within their expectations. Taya would then go face to face with Cargill, who then ducked out of the ring, reluctant to get physical with AEW's newest signing. Valkyrie would then turn to Cargill's baddie, Layla Gray, who she dropped with a Jaded, the champion's own move, presumably setting up the next challenger for the TBS Championship. Whilst commentary billed the move as Jade's, it's worth noting that Valkyrie has used the move longer than Jade under the name of Road to Valhalla. Last night's episode of Dynamite would then close with a three-way trios match for the AEW World Trios Championships, with the House of Black defending against the Jericho Appreciation Society and former champions, the Elite. After a pinfall on Daniel Garcia, it was the champions that retained, although it wasn't the end of the show. A backstage brawl between the Dark Order and the Blackpool Combat Club, who met earlier in the night in a match of their own, would spill out into the arena, leading to a cliffhanger ending. Hangman Page would find himself in the ring, facing off with the BCC, who were on the entrance ramp, this with the Elite stood behind Page. Of course, Hangman is a former member of the Elite, having since gone his separate ways. The ending appears to tease that they could be set to reunite, with this possibility at least being the storyline going forward. And before you go, make sure you check out the most improved superstar ratings in WWE 2K23.